Sharansky Danziger, and it's a pleasure to be here with you and with my father, Natan Sharansky, and talk about the Haggadah and specifically the theme of memory.
I also am very glad to speak with my daughter about Haggadah.
Let's delve right in. In many ways, memory is the kingdom of the Jew, because even when we didn't have land, even when we didn't have sovereignty, even when we were scattered in all the ends of the earth, we didn't lose touch with our memories. And our memories made sure that we still thought of ourselves as one people, that we still had a distinct identity, that we still had a shared future we aspired to and we prayed for and dreamed of. And it kept us together as one people. And in many ways, the motto at the heart of this kingdom of memory is Leila Seder, the night of the Seder, when we sit and we read Haggadah Shel Pesach and we remember and we fulfill the commandment, V'higadat lebincha, and you shall tell your son, and pass our memories from generation to generation. Now, for me, Seder and reading the Haggadah and encountering these memories was something that happened before I even had memories. For as long as I remember, every year in Leila Seder, we sit together and we remember. But you only encountered this motto at the heart of Jewish memory when you were 26 years old in Moscow. Can you tell us about this first Seder?
Yes, it's not accidental that I was 26. Because you said it very beautiful, that memory is the kingdom of Jews. So we were exiled from this kingdom. Because in Soviet Union, they deprived us of our identity. And the way to do it is to erase the memory. In fact, Soviet people were cogs of the machine of communism. That's official title which Stalin used, saying that Soviet people are proud, Soviet citizens are proud to be the cogs of the great machine of communism. You can say, is it possible really to erase memory? Yes, it is possible if the state is totalitarian enough, if it fully controls education, if it fully controls media, if it is sure that the fear inserted in their citizens will prevent them from saying anything that authorities don't agree. And a good example, tragic example, is Holocaust. I was born in Ukraine a few years after Holocaust. Just a few miles from my home was the second biggest grave of Holocaust, mine shaft, in which 70,000 people, mainly Jews, were thrown. Some of them children alive, but some simply killed, and because it's a few hundred meters.
So
and
nobody survived. Nobody could survive.
Nobody survived. It was Arima,
piles.
The piles of the killed people, and we knew nothing about it, really nothing. And number one grave of Holocaust was Babi Yar, which was turned into the used water from different factories.
Center, like to collect water in it?
Yeah, to collect used water.
Dirty water.
Dirty water. It was like a lake of dirty water. And then when it failed, it was a stadium, because authorities really wanted to erase the memory. And when, many years after this, I tried to come to Babi Yar on the anniversary, so-called, of killing on Yom Kippur, I and many other activists were simply arrested to prevent us from coming to Babi Yar. So, and here we come back to our identity, to our history, and we have the first Seder in my life. And the people from 3 underground ulpanim are coming together. Each of us knows from 500 to 1,000 words. There were such books, 500 words, 1,000 words. And each of us learned small piece of Haggadah. I learned Danziger, but everybody learned something. And together we are telling the story. And you feel yourself so empowered, because it's so easy to feel that you are in this generation of going out of Egypt. And then not only about going out of Egypt, but the miracles continue all through the way to Eretz Israel. And then you are coming to this, that in every generation there are those who want to destroy us. Can you read it from
Sure.
Haggadah?
I'll read in Hebrew and then in English. והיא שעמדה לאבותינו ולנו, שלא אחד בלבד עמד עלינו לכלותנו, אלא שבכל דור ודור עומדים עלינו לכלותנו, והקדוש ברוך הוא מצילנו מידם. And this promise is what has stood by our ancestors and us. For it was not only one man who rose up to destroy us. In every single generation, people rise up to destroy us, but the Holy One, blessed be He, saves us from their hands.
So you can really easily understand what it meant to us. We are now in this generation of fighters. And to think that just at this moment, there are hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of Jews who are sitting at the table and remembering, telling the story. And that if you take generation after generation, then there were tens of millions who were reading the story. And this like ocean of memory. We came back to the kingdom of memory, as you said. And at the same time, you look at your tales. You have to understand that when you become a minister, you're getting car with the driver. And when you become big troublemaker in the eyes of KGB, you're getting a bunch of tails, KGB men who are following you 24 hours a day. And so you look out of the door and you see these KGB men who are cogs. They themselves consider themselves the cogs of this machine. So here is the sea, the ocean of Jewish memory, and wave after the wave in this ocean, there is another generation. They will simply swallow up all these cogs exactly as they swallowed up the soldiers of Pharaoh.
It's interesting. You use the image of the parting of the sea and how the soldiers of Pharaoh drowned in the sea. And you talk about the miracles and about drawing strength from the stories of miracles throughout the story of the Exodus. But at the time, you didn't believe in God. So what did these miracles even mean to you? What did it mean?
Well, you see, majority of those who were then the activists, majority, not everybody, majority didn't believe in God. We were scientists, we were rational people. It's difficult to believe in these innatural wonders. But we were believers, because for us, the real miracle was the existence of Jewish people, and that the fact that we can join this thousands and thousands years of trip. That was the real miracle. All the other specific miracles were like illustration to this wonderful match.
In a sense, you're saying the kingdom of memory is not just what you drew strength from, but this was the miracle. The miracle was that you still remembered. And I think that this is very deep and sheds some light on one of the mysteries of the Seder and of the Haggadah. Because one of the weird things, or at least weird at first glance, in the text of the Haggadah is that we don't focus primarily on the Exodus. Yes, we talk about the Exodus, but mostly we talk about how different generations remembered it. For example, this famous text where we say, once Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yoshua and Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah and Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Tarfon reclined for the Seder in Bnei Brak, and they told of the Exodus from Egypt all that night. Now, many commentators suggest that they were actually planning Mered Bar Kokhva's rebellion. But one way or another, we see how this particular group of exceptional men in a particular historical moment stood in a particular place and remembered the Exodus. Or a different part of the Haggadah, one of the central parts of the Haggadah is we say, Rabban Gamliel would say, anyone who does not say these three things on Pesach has not fulfilled his obligations, and these are they. Pesach, matzah, and maror, bitter herbs. So we remember how Rabban Gamliel thought we should remember the Pesach. I'll give two more quick examples. One is in korech, where we take the maror, the bitter herbs, and the matzah and eat them folded together. And we say, in memory of the temple, Zecher LaMikdash, in the tradition of Hillel. This is what Hillel would do when the temple still stood. He would wrap the Pesach offering up with matzah and bitter herbs and eat them together to fulfill what is said in the book of Numbers, you shall eat it with matzah and bitter herbs. So now we don't have the Pesach offering, but we still eat the matzah and the herbs together like a sandwich in memory of how they used to do it in the time of Hillel at the temple. So we remember, it's like geological layers of memory. And even in a sense, the central text, the text that does tell the story of Yetziat Mitzrayim, that starts with the word Arami Oved Avi, my father was a lost Aramean, is a text that Moses dictates to us, Moshe dictates to us in the book of Deuteronomy, so that when we, in all the generations while we had the temple, bring the first fruits, the bikurim, to the temple, we will say this text, showing that we know where we came from, we know how we were slaves in Egypt, we know that God took us out of there and gave us this land, and therefore, in gratitude, we bring the first fruits. So we don't remember the Exodus, we remember all these generations that remembered the Exodus.
So, yes, that's the power of Seder, that it put us in this chain of generations. But I think that every Seder, it's not only additional generation which is present, but it's another layer of meaning, another layer of adding to the main concepts of Seder Pesach. And that's why all these commands which we have at our Seder Pesach, all these questions and all these answers, and each time we, in our family, with all our guests, with our Olim Chadashim who are always at our Seder, we are trying to find new additional meaning.
So you're saying, in a sense, that the memory of all the generations that came before us and the fact that we bring them into our Seder makes us kind of connect or tap into this ocean of memory that is a miracle in and of itself. But at the same time, it gives us an active role in it, because in every generation, we have to add our own geological layer to what the Seder is.
Yeah, that's why it is the evening of questions and answers.
Yeah, and questions and answers are indeed a central element of the methodology of the Seder. We have the famous text, right? Ma nishtana laila hazeh michol leilot. What makes this night unlike all other nights? Every family has its own tradition of what tune to sing it to. It's a big deal. The kids learn it, like, in our family Seder, the youngest grandkids sing it. And according to some commentators, we don't even need to say it if we have our own genuine questions. In other words, you're supposed to do all kinds of weird things in the Seder to encourage children to ask questions, but if they come with their own questions, great, you don't even need to say Ma nishtana. In practice, we do say it.
It's interesting. I just remembered while you were talking that at that first Seder, when I was 26, I was the youngest in the audience. So I had to say these 4 questions. I didn't have to stand on the seat as our grandchildren are doing, though maybe it could be good, then people will see me better. But if I understand correctly what you say, that if there are no questions, there should be no Seder.
In a sense, yeah, the Seder is about questions. It's meant to inspire questions. And if we ask our own genuine questions, it's debatable if we even need these 4 questions to complement it. In practice, we do say them. It's part of the text. But there was a time when it was left to our own discretion. And I want to say something about that you say that every Seder is an opportunity for our generation to add its own layer of understanding and insight. And the structure of the Seder, not just the content of the Seder, which talks about memory over and over again and brings memory in over and over again, but the structure, in many ways, is an invitation or a prompt for this active participation. Part of it is the question and answers that really kind of invite us to bring ourselves and what bothers us or what is unclear to us into the conversation and then find answers within ourselves. But it's not just the questions and answers. It's also the fact that it's a very disjointed story. It's not a nicely put together story with a beginning, a middle, a climax, and an end, right? It's a lot of different passages from different texts that follow each other in ways that don't always make obvious sense, and we have to think about it. We have to put our, the detective hat on and try and understand what is the story trying to tell us here, and that invites a lot of active participation. And honestly, I don't think I understood how important and empowering that aspect of the Seder is until until I became a mother. And I'll tell you why. Growing up, we always had two Seders, as you well know. We had the Seder that we do at the same time as all of Am Yisrael, but we also had a family Seder that we celebrate 6 weeks earlier on the second day of Adar.
Adar Aleph.
Adar Aleph, and when there's no Adar Aleph, then Adar. And that's the Seder that celebrates the day of your liberation from prison. And you know it well, since you are the ones who conceived of it, but the Seder is one of my earliest memories, meaning it was always this striking moment when the four of us, you and Ima and me and Chana, sit around the table, and even though it's the middle of the week, and it's not Shabbat, we would have Shabbat dishes on the table and nice food and special dessert. And you would wear the kippah that a fellow inmate from prison made from you from the filling of a boot.
The same kippah that on Seder.
Yeah, the same kippah you wear it twice a year for the real Seder and for our family Seder. Yeah. And what we did, the one thing we did other than eating and enjoying the specialty treats was ask questions. Chana and I would ask questions, and you and Ima would answer them. And of course, the questions changed dramatically as we grew up. I don't know if you remember, when we were very little, our main interest was in whether there were animals in prison.
Spiders in my punishing cell.
Yes, your friends, the spiders, were big stars in our family Seder. Also the mice, don't forget the mice.
Yeah,
mice. And then as we grew a little bit, we started asking about conditions in prison and how was it. Then when we became young girls interested in romance, we wanted to know how you and Ima met. What was it like to be separated for 12 years? As we grew a little older, we asked about the struggle and about how world Jewry supported the struggle and what was it like to work with Jews from all over the world. What were the challenges? When we married and built our own family, we started asking, how do you rebuild a family after being separated for 12 years? And then we had our children. And when we had our children, I really, really wanted to pass a story on to them because the story was so important to me. In many ways, all those years of family Seders meant that the story became part of me, that it wasn't something that happened to you. It was something that lived in me, and whenever I had to make big decisions, I would turn to that story. It meant that when we went to Moscow on a trip with a family, so you could show us all the places that were important for your struggle.
You remember how it was called, this trip?
Yeah, we called it a branches trip.
Yeah, we wanted to call it naturally the trip for roots.
To look for our roots, yeah.
For roots, but Avital said that we have no roots in Russia. We have roots only in Israel.
So we called it a branches
trip.
trip.
Yeah, in order to have a compromise.
Yeah. So on this branches trip, for example, in this picture, we stand by the central headquarters of the KGB in Moscow. Lubyanka, where they investigated you, where they told you wouldn't survive if you stand up against them. And there we were with our children and our family, happily and triumphantly present in the world. I felt like I've been there before. All those places didn't feel alien to me. They felt like part of my internal geography, and I wanted them desperately to be part of my children's inner geography in the same way. So I poured everything I know about storytelling into telling the story of your struggle to my children. And I made the stakes very clear. I highlighted moments of high tension or of decision making. I made sure that there's an exposition and a beginning and a middle and a climax and an ending. And when I would finish the story, the kids would cheerfully clap and say, now can you tell us the story of Snow White? And I realized that by giving them this nice, elegant story that's beautifully structured and beautifully, if I say so myself, told, I gave them something that they can then close and put on a shelf next to other stories they heard. I didn't give them something raw that became part of their own soul. And that's when I realized why the questions and answers were so important. Why that is the crux of our family Seder and of the Seder and Pesach, when we become participants as opposed to audience.
I have to say that I enjoy very much this Seder with grandchildren, because not like you and Hannah, you are almost of the same age, and the questions were the same. Here we have grandchildren from 3 to 15, so one grandboy and granddaughter are standing on their seats and singing folk questions, and the others are speaking about spiders in the punishing cell, and the others are speaking about family and the struggle of Soviet Jews. So it's all these elements come together, but everybody gets something.
Exactly. And it's exciting to see them taking this story and making that part of themselves. But I want to turn for a second to the moment when you decided to start this tradition. For me, it was just a given. I grew up doing this. How did you and Ima decide that you want to have a family Seder?
Our reunification, of course, was very dramatic, very powerful, very exciting moment. Like in one day, I went from the hell to paradise. And Vital said that we were departed in the morning. And then 12 years after this, we met. We finished it in the evening near the Kotel. So for me, it's like one long day which is finished. And this was such a powerful moment that we wanted very much that it will remain as part of our story. And then it became, a few years after this, it became so clear why it is important. Because you meet more and more people who were part of this struggle, it is unbelievable victory. People spent 20 years in this struggle, many American Jews, and they forgot to tell this story to their children. And as a result, this looking for how to strengthen identity of our children. We're talking with them about David, about Maccabim, but you forgot that you yourself had this unique victory. And so we're fighting against assimilation. I was involved for years in this struggle. You understand that it is very important to keep our liberation, our Yetziat Mitzrayim, our Exodus as part of this great story of real Exodus. And that's why these two Sderim, these two Seders, are so interconnected.
Do you think that your struggle, the story of your struggle and your generation's struggle, both in the Soviet Union and throughout the Jewish world, can be a source of strength in the struggle against anti-Semitism today?
Of course, there are two major struggles of world Jewry after the Second World War, or after the creation of Israel. One was struggle for bringing down the Iron Curtain and liberating millions of Soviet Jews. And the other is today against anti-Semitism, which increased dramatically from the left and from the right. And there are people who are saying, and I hear it more and more, why shouldn't we repeat our successful struggle for Soviet Jewry in our today's struggle? Well, there are many reasons. I explain it in a number of articles why it cannot be simply repeated. But first condition is that people have to remember, to know how their grandfathers and their parents reached this victory. So yeah, it is very important for today's struggle for our identity against assimilation and against anti-Semitism.
You're saying, in a sense, that we're depriving ourselves from the strength that tapping into the ocean of memory can give us if we forget. So sometimes totalitarian regimes make us forget, and sometimes we just fail to remember. And maybe Pesach is an opportunity to remember the power of memory and how it can bring new life, new vitality into facing the challenges that our generation faces, right? We said, Bechol dor vador. In every generation, we have our own challenges, but if we remember how we overcame the previous generation's challenges, we have more tools in our arsenal.
Well, today, I think, you have no doubt that you have challenges to meet in your generation. If a few years ago you were telling me, well, but you didn't leave us anything.
Yeah.
I don't think you feel it today.
Before October 7th, I lived in the charmed world of thinking that it's not fair that our parents' generation fought all the important wars and left us nothing to do. I wish I could still be in that place, to be honest with you, but we're not there.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving back to our moment in history, I keep thinking about the decision you and Ima made to hold this family Seder, because I feel like now it's our time, my generation's time, to decide how we want to remember what happened to us. You had to decide how to remember, how to turn your living experience into a memory that will be passed forward and empower us and our kids and future generations. We who lived through October 7th, who lived through 2 years of war, who now live through the aftermath of the war, and nothing is settled, nothing is quiet, everything is still very precarious. It's our turn. We have to decide how to pass on our lived experience into the future, how to enshrine it and turn it into memory so it will empower future generations. But we have a problem, because when you and Ima sat together and decided to hold a Seder, you were in agreement about the essence of the struggle, but what was it you lived through? And we disagree about what was it we lived through. Some of us look at the war and say, this was a failure, we lost, and focus on October 7th and on the feeling of neglect of the government and army's failure to rise to the occasion. Some of us say, no, this was an amazing triumph. We were beat so hard, and yet look how we rose and how many triumphs we achieved and how many different fronts. Some people, even the name of the war is controversial. Even the way we remember it on a very basic level of what kind of ceremony we want to put together to remember it has been controversial from the first anniversary of the war, when there were 2 alternative main events commemorating it. So how do we, the people of Israel, come together and say, this is our story, and start passing it down the generation to empower the people who will follow us, when we can't even agree on what happened and what's the basic contour of the events?
I think it's too early to decide. You used the example of our struggle, and it seems that it was one struggle with one clear aim to defeat Soviet Union. But looking back, in the most difficult moments of the struggle, there were many different groups. Kulturniki and politiki, those who insisted that, first of all, we have to go back to our culture. Those who were saying it is political struggle to destroy the Iron Curtain. There were those who believed in quiet diplomacy and those who believed in open struggle. Those who believed that our allies are dissidents, and those who believed we should not irritate KGB, we should stick only to Jews. Those who believed that that is a struggle for immigration, and those who believed that that's struggle for Aliyah. And the tensions were very high. Of course, we couldn't organize demonstrations one against the other, but the words like treason or anti-Zionism or anti-democratic, they were in abundance. And these passionate struggles, for some people, not many, because there are not many who are still alive, but are continued until this day. But it doesn't matter, because for the world, for us today, it was one struggle. And the story which we are passing to the generations, we were slaves in the Soviet Union, there was Iron Curtain, we together, all the Jews on the world, broke it, and we are free. That is the story. So maybe we have to wait and to see how this story will look in 20 years. And I think that each of us today feels differently. For example, I think that in 20 years from now, it will be remembered that we had an illusion that the peace is made with our enemies. That was the slogan beginning from Oslo. And what we discovered, that the peace is made and should be made with our friends, or those who became our friends, and with the enemies who are defeated.
To me, I think the emphasis is less on our enemies and our relationship with our enemies. It's more about our internal relationship within ourselves. Like, if I think, what is the story that I think will emerge? I think it'll be a story about how when we prioritize our opinions, sectorial, partisan opinions, over our togetherness, we became very vulnerable to attacks, and how when we held to our differences, but connected back to the fact that, that we're in it together, we found the strength to overcome.
Well, I think these 2 points of view will merge, will meet one another. Then that will be the story to discuss for another Seder.
Speaking of the Seder, I think the Haggadah does offer us a little bit of a hint as to what kind of story might emerge over time, like you said, in two ways. First, the Haggadah is a collective story. Unlike the story in the book of Shmot and Exodus, when there's a central hero, Moshe, and we follow his actions and God's actions and Paro's actions, and the people are there mostly passive in the background. In Haggadah Shel Pesach, we barely mention Moshe. Mostly we talk in the plural. We say, we were slaves, and now we are free. In every generation, they threatened us, and we
so
had to
that
overcome.
is the struggle of the people, not
Exactly.
only of
Right now, we're still in
hero.
the very... Right now, we're still building a collage of personal memories and personal experiences, the experiences of the fallen and their families, and of the hostages and their families, and other people in different positions, and of course, the guilty, those who are responsible. So we're focusing on names, we're focusing on personal experiences, but I think that with time, the puzzle, the mosaic will become the story of a group. And we're not there yet, and that's okay. Right now, we're where we're supposed to be. We're not there yet. We can't let go of this yet. We need to be where we are. But with time, it'll be the story of us.
The aim of Seder, in fact, is to look at the past, to be proud of the past, and to make conclusions about the future.
Yeah, and I think that it's important. And I think that there's another aspect of the Seder that gives us a little bit of a hint as to what kind of story maybe it would be of benefit for us to tell when we talk about our present moment. And that is the fact that the Seder places the beginning of our journey, not in Egypt, not in the moment of subjugation, but far earlier in our pagan past. We say like this, we say, Mitchila ovdei avodah zara ayu avotenu. In the beginning, our ancestors were idol worshippers. And at first glance, it seems totally irrelevant. This is not the story of the Exodus. The story of the Exodus is not about our spiritual journey towards monotheism. That's Chumash Bereshit, that's Genesis. The story of the Seder is our journey towards freedom, right? But no, we place the beginning there. And a friend of mine, Tamara Weissman, who's a Torah scholar and also an amazing tour guide, wrote a short essay about this for the Haggadah I'm working on these days. It's coming out this year, the Az Nashir Matan Haggadah. And she pointed out that by placing the beginning of the story not in something that was done to us, we were subjugated, but rather in our own earlier spiritual state, we transform our role in the story from passive victims, we were subjugated, then we were saved, to people undergoing growth, to people who are on the journey towards finding who they want to be. And if I take that insight into our own dilemmas right now of how to remember October 7th, how to remember the war, how to turn our experiences into a source of empowerment and clarity and vision for future generations, I hope that when all these different narratives merge one day into a collective story, it will not just be a story of overcoming difficulties, it will also be a story of coming of age, of growing up.
Amen. Let's hope. We have a lot to do in our future Seders.
Yes, we have a lot to do in our future Seders. Thank you very much. And I want to say that even though we're still kind of in the eye of the storm in terms of figuring out how to remember current events, at least we have the encouragement, or at least we can draw courage and strength from the fact that we're not the first generation who faced upheaval. We're part of an ocean of such generations, as you said. And if we were able to pass through those tests historically together, I have full faith we'll be able to pass through them together now. And this togetherness, the complicated, challenging, and yet empowering togetherness of the Jewish people will be the topic we discuss in our next conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you.